Okay, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Chapter 9. Here are some to-dos. We're getting to the end of the book. After this is just final thoughts. We'll do kind of a summary and brainstorm some stuff next week. Let's get started.
Sounds good. Excellent. Thank you very much. Some interesting concepts and ideas again in this one. I thought that his quote, and I believe it's actually an Einstein quote, is that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And really, he starts playing this up when he's looking at using new formulas. So he talks about going to new classes, trying new things, anything that he thinks is interesting and might lead to something new, things that he knows nothing about. He'll go and take a class for that thing or jump into a convention or something. Some of these, he says, are really cheap, some are expensive, but regardless, it expands his portfolio of what he knows about. Action always beats inaction. So it's actually going out and doing it. And that seems to be a big differentiator between people that look at things that could be cool to do, that might be able to help you, and those that actually do it and pull the trigger and are successful, is having that action in what that new thing might be to expand your knowledge and your skill base and your new formula. What do you think, Zach?
Oh yeah, there's some cool, like, tiny little chapter, big ideas.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I love is he actually breaks down what he views as an opportunity in this chapter. And he says a profit. He said for there to be profit in a deal, because he makes this point that when you buy something, you make money on the purchase. You don't make money on the sale. Mm-hmm. And he said for there to be profit in a deal, he looks for two things. There has to be a bargain and there has to be a change. And it applies to real estate, because you can buy something in an area because it's cheap, but it might stay cheap for the next 10 years and there would be no upside for you. So you have to have a change. You can't just have a bargain, because like John Maynard Keynes says, the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. And then the second point that he makes is about buying the whole pie and selling off the pieces. So he makes an analogy to a big land deal where the parcel was too big for his buyer or his friend that wanted it. And so he bought the whole thing, sold off the piece the guy wanted, and then kept the rest as his profit. But Ray Dalio in Principles talks about this too, where we get stuck in this mindset where we want to own the whole pie. But if we focus, have a growth mindset, have a attitude of abundance when we look at the world, we can focus and make a much bigger pie, and that slice that we get out of a way bigger pie is ultimately going to be a lot bigger than the little tiny pie that we could build on our own. So those are the two things in that chapter that I really bit hard on. What about you, Aaron?
Cool. It's good stuff. I like the idea of that was the first thing that you said, Zach.
The bargain and the change.
The change, yeah, exactly. So that's something that might seem complicated, but it isn't. I was talking to a real estate investor years ago and I asked him how things are going. He said, oh, good, just spent the morning and then a bit of the afternoon looking into the future. And then he paused dramatically so he could bait me into asking him the question, big dramatic reveal. And what he was doing was watching the city council meeting live, because there were a few rezoning applications and he really wanted to know how those were going through, because it was going to affect him. But all you have to do in Kamloops is drive around downtown. I know this isn't going to show very well, but if you have 4 people that want to sell these lots in the corners, look at how many. The CAM plan has density as part of the plan. So if 4 of these owners get together and sell it to a developer who's putting up multifamily, which is what CAM plan is focused on, increasing the densification, you can make a buck. Obviously they're motivated to get those pieces. Just look at City Gardens, all those houses, that 2 full blocks that they bought. Absolutely. And mowed them all down. Could you imagine if you were the last person on the block and they had all the other ones? I think they'd be pretty motivated to give you a few bucks for it. So that's what I think is interesting, is you can kind of tell that change. I think that part is huge. Anything else you guys want to touch on?
Just with change too, the other thing that he was talking about was talking to neighbors, the postal worker and this kind of stuff, finding out what the feel is of the neighborhood. I'm not necessarily saying gentrification, but whatever the change might be that's happening in neighborhoods, you can see businesses coming in and growth, and maybe you can get in on the bottom floor when some of those changes are happening too. It's opportunity.
Totally. I mean, we had a little bit of a riff before we started this video talking about, he says like offers. And that's an Aussie jerk thing too. Everybody should be writing offers all the time on everything. Now, we can be the sober mind as the agent representing you, but there's a lot of truth to that, because you don't really know what someone's willing to take until you have two parties at the table. We have a lot of people that just see pieces of real estate on realtor.ca. They look at it and they assume that that's what they're going to pay. But in reality, there's stuff that sells way under market. And just because it's sitting there, they want to sell. They're waiting for someone to come. And there's huge opportunity there when you have people that are keyed in. And if you have the guts to write an offer that makes sense to you and not be afraid to hurt feelings on the other side.
Yeah, it's not mean. You're not emotional about it. The seller says, oh no, this number doesn't work for me, and they simply say no. That's it. Did you have something else?
Exactly.
That's it.
No, it's business.
It's
Exactly.
business.
Sweet.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Chapter 9. One more to come. Adios.
Woo-hoo.
Bye, guys.